Hi, this is Robert Clickybeard with the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. We're going to take about 30 minutes of your life to deliver some amazing content from accomplished leaders, business owners, to provide you some great Ironman mindsets to help you scale your business, to become a better leader and push yourself out of a comfort zone into something that's going to stretch you. We hope you really enjoy these shows and encourage you to like and share with your friends, your network, family members. Try and get a wider audience and improve our industry. On each show, I'm going to try and pull out one type of Ironman mindset, insight that you could take back to your business. And if you're implementing one insight every single week or all the shows, then it's going to make a dramatic improvement to your business. Super excited as well to share that we're partnering up with Boss Business Management Software, which is the ultimate cloud-based solution providing comprehensive insights and tools to optimize performance. Join the Boss community today and transform your business so you too can say, my boss is working for me. Cheers, everyone. Hi, this is Robert Clickybeard with the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. Really excited today to be joined by Shelia Matthews. Nice to see you, Shelia.
Hey there.
Thanks for joining the show today. We'd have a lot of conversations, but I managed to finally twist your arm to get you onto the podcast. So excited you're here. Just for the audience, I'd love them to hear a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, Robert. So I have been in the HR and people and culture space for my entire career, which is, I don't want to date myself too much, but certainly it's been a very long time. I started out working at really big companies like UPS and MetLife. And as I progressed in my career and moved up the chain and started a family and, started doing all these different things, I kind of realized I wanted more impact and meaning in the work that I was doing. And I found that niching into smaller sized businesses. So I made an intentional decision in 2020 to leave UPS and went to work for Audex Group, which they had like 400 or 500 people in the portfolio company where I was working. And that was really cool. Lots of impact. I stood up a lot of people functions for Audex. Then from there, ended up at a startup, which had like 5 people working for Alex and Layla Hormozi at acquisition.com. That was probably, it was definitely a wild ride. I scaled that business for them to about 50 people. We grew the portfolio by, I want to say, just under 100 million over the 2 years that I was there. We launched a workshops division. We bought a headquarters, and all of those things have people needs. And so what I did for them was, of course, build the internal function of people and culture at acquisition.com with Layla. But then I also worked for all of their portfolio companies, hiring executives, building teams, helping them with hiring processes. And so, it gave me a lot of exposure to small businesses of all sorts of different industries, primarily services. And then I left acquisition earlier this year and decided to start my own thing. And so I started a company called Culture Pro, where I just focus on process work like hiring and onboarding and communication and operationalizing culture for growing businesses. And so that's what I've been doing since then.
Well, that's, tremendous amounts of experience there. And I think one of the things when I previously saw your bio, there was some amazing statistics around hiring a ton of people for companies like UPS. How many? What was that number?
Yeah, so every peak season, every Christmas time, UPS needs to hire between 400,000 and 500,000 people in a few months. And in the old days, we would start that process in July, August, and spend the next 6 months hiring and losing and hiring and losing and hiring and losing all 4. And so I was selected for a project that there was a team of us, and we automated that process to where we could hire really an unlimited number, but our goal was that we could hire 400,000 people in 90 days. And so we were successful. The first year was messy, but it's got better season over season. And so, yeah, like it's a very different type of hire, but it's amazing what you can do with good process people and good automation people.
No, that's awesome. I love that. Great story. So you've obviously had that tremendous amount of experience working for larger companies or even for startup companies. Is there a consistent theme that you see in terms of just people doing a bad job of hiring?
Mm-hmm. It's a great question because there are patterns. Like at UPS, interestingly, because it's such a big place, the focus was less about finding the perfect person and more about if we can just find someone who has the skills and the aptitude that we're looking for, let's just get them in. But when you're in a small business, that's a scary process. And so at UPS, what you had sometimes was that you could find people, and certainly there was always a group who they showed up. They were intrinsically motivated. They were going to come in and want to do a good job. But then the hard part is you're bringing them into an environment that moves very slowly. And then they get discouraged. They don't realize that in a company with millions of employees, it does take months and months to learn the breadth of perspective needed before you start making a change. And so sometimes you'd have hiring managers who just wanted to bring in a bunch of fast moving people. And that was a little blind to the culture. Because if you bring in people who want to make change and do things quickly into a company like UPS where things move very slowly, you're kind of setting people up to be unhappy. So that's one type of hiring mistake that we see, is that you hire for what you know you need, but you're not necessarily thinking about the ecosystem in which that person's going to have to fit into and whether or not it's a fit. Because we can all say, well, I want to hire people who can move faster and make decisions and do all these things. But if you're dropping them into an environment where that's not valued or encouraged, it's not a good match.
Right.
Then on the other hand, on the small business side, I write about this a lot, is, people tend to hire their family and friends. One is because of the lies they tell themselves. Like, I can't find good people. Who's going to want to work for me? Like, that's something that a lot of people will say out loud to me sometimes. Well, I don't think I can. I mean, why would anybody want to work here? It's like, ouch. Well, yeah, I guess you're right. Why would they? If that's your attitude about it, why would anybody want to work for you? But really, there's a lot of people out there who want to work at a smaller company because they see that they could make an outsized impact there. And then the other thing is, friends and family are great. I mean, I love all of my friends and family, but I don't hire them. And the reason for that is because, do they even have the skills of what I need in my business right now? And I think that's the other big mistake that I see sometimes, is that we're hiring from a position of trust. I can trust this person. They are competent. It'll be fine. But if you need a marketing director, and you're hiring your brother or your sister or your aunt or your uncle or whoever, if they're a marketing director, great, that's fine. But most often they're not, and you're hiring someone to learn at the most crucial time in your business where, you want to leverage the speed that you can get as a small business. Like, small businesses can move very quickly and pivot very quickly. And so bring in someone who knows exactly what you need. And so to me, like, that's the other side of it, is that sometimes we're hiring without the culture in mind. And then other times we're hiring only for the culture and not with the skills in mind.
That's so true. And even your comment around family and trust can also be questionable as well. I've seen a few scenarios where that hasn't quite worked out just because they've had too much leeway and that's been taken advantage of. So
it's really tough. Like, we don't like to acknowledge that side of it sometimes, but I think the more I work with smaller businesses, the more I find myself talking about, like, hey, just because your interests and your motives are pure, it doesn't mean the other person's are. And especially sometimes with friends and family, like, there's some entitlement that can come along with that, especially if we were not having hard conversations. Maybe we didn't set expectations in the beginning, and then people just get comfortable. Power dynamics are a big thing that kind of influence how people show up. And so when you hire someone to do a job, you have the authority dynamic in place, meaning like you are the owner, you are the founder, you are the boss, and this is a person who receives a paycheck to do their work. That can interfere sometimes if you want them to have a lot of decision making and authority. They may feel like, but I have to run it by you first. You own this business. But with family and friends, our power dynamic comes in equal, but we're bringing them into an unequal environment because the boss should always have authority over the company. And that's a formal dynamic. But when you bring in your sibling or your, again, close friend, you've always operated at an equal dynamic. And now you're expecting that they respect the unequal environment. And it is a tricky situation to navigate. And again, like everyone goes into it with good intentions, but eventually the work's not getting done, or a lot of mistakes are being made, or people are getting their toes stepped on and interfering in areas that they shouldn't. And then it's like you either close your eyes and pray that it gets better and hope for the best, or, you have to have the hard conversation. And I see more often that people tend to use hope. And I always say, hope is not a strategy. You need a plan to navigate this. You've got to say the hard things,
So rather than trying to cover the three different spectrums of size of business, maybe we focus on that, the sort of the medium-sized business and around the importance of finding your who. Talk to me a little bit about that in terms of what do you mean by that? Is it the culture piece? Is it the skills? Should you be hiring people that are better than you?
Yeah, when I started talking about finding your who, it really came out of this aha moment I had that most people think they have a what problem. So when you're working inside of your business, it's really easy for someone to think, man, I need more leads. I need to learn how to market better so that I can teach somebody to do that for me. And that is a what problem, and that's what they're thinking they're solving for. It's like, I just need to learn it and then do it. And then we'll have more leads in the business, and more leads will generate more sales, which will generate more money, da, 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 da. Most what problems are actually who problems. It's not a good use of an owner's time to learn every aspect of a business. Don't get me wrong. In the beginning, you probably have to do that because you're not earning enough to hire a team yet.
Right.
But when you're making enough money to hire a team, it's not a you problem anymore. It's a who problem. Or it's not a what, it's a who. There's a lot of different ways to say it, but it's really about know what you need and then ask yourself, who's the best person to do that thing? The answer should not be the owner. The owner should be working on the business. And so that's what you mentioned a minute ago. You need to hire people who can work in the business to help grow the business so that your time is spent working on the business, which means strategy, messaging, overall direction, 3 to 5 years, and communication. I think sometimes when I talk to business owners, they're really surprised when I say, your number one job is just repeating yourself all day. If you don't feel like a broken record, you're not communicating the important things often enough. Mm. And so finding your who allows you to stay in that role, the communicator and the cheerleader and the megaphone holder. The who person is the person best suited to do the what of whatever it is that's causing a constraint or a bottleneck in your business. Sometimes it's fulfillment. Sometimes you need better people managers. Sometimes you need processes, but it doesn't mean you write the processes. You hire the person who can build the systems and document it.
I can just hear people saying, that's great, but I can't afford them. And then people sometimes go down that path and they think, well, if I free myself up, then maybe I can go out and sell more and then maybe I can afford them in 2 or 3 months. But what's your answer to that pushback you get?
It depends on the area of constraint, but the high level, without knowing a lot about the business, the first 2 limiting beliefs that I try to overcome is you need a marketing professional or you need a sales director. And the great news is that both of those positions should pay for themselves. If you hire a good marketing director, you'll be able to measure the volume of new leads that are coming in that get converted to sales. And you can attribute that delta to that person's salary. It's like, okay, I'm going to spend this much, but by the end of the year, this person will have paid for themselves and hopefully beyond the cost of that role. And then I look at a sales manager or a sales director job and I say the same thing. A lot of times the founder is the person selling the business in the beginning. Makes sense because you are the business. So you should be selling yourself. But at some point you start adding salespeople and you can manage a couple. But if you're running a business, it's not going to be long until they really need a dedicated manager. A sales manager pays for themselves by bringing in the best practices and the rituals that run and manage a sales team. So it's having daily sales trainings. It's game taping calls. It's giving each person feedback. It's coaching and removing barriers. All of those things you should be able to measure in close percentage increasing. Or did we nurture our leads better? Was that part of their focus? Do we have a higher show rate? And does that lead to more closed business? So to me, like those are usually the two. It's usually one or the other in the beginning. Most people, I can't afford that. I just can't. It's like you're not thinking big enough because if you hire the right person, they'll pay for themselves and you don't have to worry about the money. If you can afford them for 2 to 3 months, think of it like that because after that time frame, they'll earn their keep. But let's say it's a different part of the business. There's a lot of different ways that you can go about finding that. I always say pay for the person that is most qualified that you can afford. You may need a director, but you can't afford a director. Well, then hire a strong manager. Hire a strong individual contributor. Get the salary down at the level that you can afford, and then hire the best person you can find. And don't overtitle them because it's a little insulting to say, well, I know I need a director, but I can only pay this. So I'm going to look for people with director experience, but I'm going to, bring them in. Be honest. People and employees that you're hiring and interviewing, they'll respect that. But do bring in someone. Because even having a junior person who knows that area, whether it's fulfillment or HR, maybe it's a hiring person, having someone in place is better than you doing it, even if it's at a lower, less experienced level. If you have a good process for finding your who, then you can really isolate, like, of the people that are willing to do this work for me at the price I can afford, who are in the top 5% of my pool. And then get one of those because they'll grow with your business from there.
No, I love that. You obviously, the saying, who got you there won't get you there. I believe maybe I'm messing that up. But, there's some thoughts around, as I look at the job market and, some of those bigger, especially in the tech side, companies are making some layoffs, unfortunately, and people get more and more concerned about the economy and what's going on. What's your thoughts around, I've used this term before, almost like upgrading some of your team members where, you're on a good growth trajectory, maybe you're growing 30, 50% in the next couple of years. And the team you have did a great job of getting you there, but they're not necessarily, they're not necessarily the team to take you to the next level. What's your thoughts about just that constantly looking or building the bench or just seeing who's out there?
Yep, that's a great question. There's 2 tips that I have for how to think about that. And the saying is, who got you here won't get you there. I knew what you were talking. I was like, oh yeah, that's an important one.
Yep.
Because the team that gets you to 3 million isn't the team that gets you to 10. I mean, that's just the expertise changes, the level of knowledge, the niching into certain areas of the business changes. Like in the beginning, you can have an army of generalists and do really, really well, but then you have to start getting specialists. And so where do they come from? You can definitely let your existing team start to specialize. And the informal way to do that is to talk to them and figure out like what areas are they more interested in? And are they interested in niching into a specific area of the business? So I hired somebody to handle all things marketing. But now that my business is growing and I'm trying to get to 5 to 7 to 8 million, I need a full-time email marketing person. I also need a full-time ads person. And I probably still need a marketing person to oversee them. And so it does create, I always tell people there's tremendous opportunity in a medium-sized and small business because it's unlike any other place. You can build your next position. If you know what you enjoy doing and you know that there's a match with what this business needs and what you like, you can create that path for yourself. Unlike in other places where a lot of the specialized roles are already in existence and you have to kind of make yourself fit into one. And so to me, there's two things is you can absolutely give your people who are with you the opportunity to specialize into a specific area. What that looks like is paying for courses for them, or maybe doing a 50-50 split, allowing them to get into industry conferences or conferences that support their line of business. Like if it's a recruiter, maybe they should go to a talent acquisition conference and learn that way, or get a certification that demonstrates their skills. The other way is if you're growing quickly and you know that you need a manager like now, the odds that this person can skill up is no one develops that fast. And so the way that I always explain that to my existing team is, listen, I know you want to be in charge of this work group. I know that. I have to bring in someone now, and you're not ready today. But I'm going to bring in someone who will mentor and teach you. And so what I do in that is I satisfy my immediate need, but I'm giving my junior current person an opportunity to skill up under someone who knows what they're doing. Because as the leader, I can't teach everybody, right? I'm hiring people who know more than me. So it doesn't make sense. Like I can't be the trainer.
Right.
And when you say that to your junior person, 9 times out of 10, they respect it. It's like, look, this person isn't going to be here forever. They may move into another role. They may take on a different role. But during the time that they're here, we will set up a learning path for you so that you can be prepared to have an opportunity to step into that role. It's not promising them the position. And we have to be very clear because what we say and what other people hear are not always the same. But it's like, I will get the knowledge and skills in front of you. And that will position you to be a strong contender when this role opens up. So it's not saying the path is paved and it's yours, because that's not the same. We have to say, like, this is the skills that I'm looking for today. Here are the ones that I don't think you have yet. We can work on this. And that way, when I'm ready to hire this position again, you'll have a stronger skill set to compete.
Yeah, you just brought up a couple of really interesting points. I want to try and emphasize them. We talked earlier about how many owners, founders don't necessarily have time to work on the business. Mm-hmm. They work in the business. They're dealing with the day-to-day stuff that comes up. And here we are, we're recording this in early September. Pretty soon we're going to be doing into a lot of strategic planning stuff, which, we're planning the next 1-3 years. Now, I feel, and hopefully you agree with me, that part of that is the people part. What do we need to do to where we're going? Looking at the existing team, looking at the org chart now versus what that looks like in 2 or 3 years. And many people, I don't feel, do this. Mm-hmm. So, when you're talking about looking at your existing talent and potentially moving into the more of that specialist, that expertise piece, I don't believe those conversations are happening, but they should be happening. Because then how do you then plan what your company looks like? How do you transition those people into those different roles? Or it's just a case of being seen as being cutthroat and just cutting them loose when you find that person you do need. What's your thoughts? I threw a loss at you there.
No, that's okay. I love that you recognize it because it is very important. And what ends up happening is like people just kind of fumble into, we need it now. And then amazing potential people get overlooked. And that can hurt your culture because then they're feeling like, oh, they didn't even consider me. Like I'm not that far off from being what they need, And so all of it really comes down to, in my old corporate life, we called it succession planning. But it's really talent management. It's having an org chart. So for some companies, they got to start there because you can't really look at the chart. Like you can't just think about it in your head. You have to map out every single person, what department they're in, who they report to, who's under them, who's next to them. You have to have a visual to start this. And then what I like to do is identify where my key roles are in the business. Yes, every person is important, but if you follow the value chain of what creates value for a company, there are some key roles where maybe a lot of decisions flow through that person, or it is high client facing. Maybe it's a top sales leader, or salesperson position, or a lot of revenue flows through that person. And so it's not about having a succession plan for every role, but it's like, where are my points of failure in my business? And do I have a plan for if that person wants to do a different job? If they have to step away next week because they have a family emergency, what is my plan? And then figuring out, okay, who in my business has similar skills or skills that could be transferable? And would they be interested in that? And so we always start those conversations internally. And then we say, okay, I've got a really thin bench, is really how I would say it. If we didn't have a lot of people that we could shift around. And so then it's like, then we've got to hire in for the skills that we need and then set up the framework for those people to pass their skills to the people who could be potential benches. And in my when I worked in Audax, we usually had 3 positions or 3 people down on a bench. So if I had a senior marketing director here, then within 1 year, I kind of knew somebody that I could put into that position in a pinch, right? Or somebody who had just done all the right things and were ready to move. Then I've got a 3 to 5 year person. And I've got a 5 or more year person. And that's the length of time that I think it will take that person to become proficient to step into the role.
Right.
And so it's a lot. As you can see, like you got to have a people plan in place to kind of come in and do that. But it starts with, I would say, step 1, map your org chart. Step 2, start understanding your people and knowing who is doing what. One of my favorite conversations is, I want to know who's in college. What are they in college for? What are they a year away from graduating with? Because they're probably assuming there's not going to be a job for them in a medium to small company with that degree. They have no idea that we could make the job for them if we know that those skills are going to be in their toolbox soon.
No, that's great. We're rapidly coming up to time here. What's the best place for people to be able to reach out to you, find out more about what you do, tap into some of your knowledge from your previous roles?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I hate to say it, I kind of live on LinkedIn. I love being on LinkedIn. I'm always commenting and adding things and talking to people out there. So, of course, Shelia Matthews, you can find me on LinkedIn that way. Or I also have a website, culturepro.co, and I'm still building it. So it's got some information. If you need to book a call or you want to have a conversation with me, there's a link for that that'll allow you to look at my calendar and schedule some time. Yeah. And then I think we've got a webinar coming up on the 19th, I think.
Yes, the 19th. I think it's around about 12 Eastern, I believe.
Yeah, with a tentative.
Yeah, so come and check us out then. So that should be fun.
Looking forward to it. Thanks so much for having me, Robert.
No problem. It's been a great conversation. I love talking about people. I mean, typical people will run our business, and to be able to help, hiring them better, retaining them, coming up with some type of development plan to become future leaders of the company. I think those are all great topics. So thank you, Shelia, for sharing.
You bet. All right. Take care. See you later.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Hopefully that was pure dead brilliant for you today, and you got some great Ironman mindset takeaways for your business or your leadership role. This is Robert Clickybeard. Love to get you, your friends, your employees to join us in our future journey. So please subscribe to your various podcast channels. Visit our website, commerciallandscaper.com or wilson-360.com. You could check out our digital courses. You could check out peer groups, coaching, my book, Ironman Mindset for Entrepreneurs. And we just want you to have a pure, dead, brilliant day. And finally, thanks again to Boss Business Management Software, which is the ultimate cloud-based solution providing comprehensive insights and tools to optimize performance. Join the Boss community today and transform your business so you too can say, my boss is working for me. Cheers, everyone.